I'm trying to. I seem to be frozen a bit.
You went live. We're live now. As we heard what he said.
For more than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. A beautiful Saturday morning, a beautiful Saturday in store for the good folks here in Peg City. Gentlemen, good to see you. Dave Manouk's in the top right. Ezra Ginsburg's in the bottom middle, and I'm your host,
What's up, boys?
Here to talk about the Winnipeg Jets, here to talk about the Manitoba Moose, here to talk about the Winnipeg Ice, here to talk about the Stanley Cup Playoffs. For the next couple of hours, we'll be joined by Jim Toth at the bottom of the hour, and then in the second hour, our good friend Jeff O'Neill joins us as well. Good to see you, gentlemen. How's life for the two of you?
I think things are going pretty well. I mean, I got most of the water out of my basement. The only problem is now I have to put new carpeting in because we ripped the majority of the carpet out of the basement. But yeah, I mean, things are generally pretty well, guys. Like when it's, going up to whatever it is, low 20s, mid 20s today, we're finally getting some nice weather here in our province. So that always helps. But yeah, lots to talk about. Unfortunately, the Moose lost last night, but the Ice did win. And, we have no shortage of things to talk about when it comes to the Jets, as you guys know, and as all the people watching know.
So, Dave M., Sunday, tomorrow, you don't really have any Winnipeg Jets obligations. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Moose aren't playing, the Ice aren't playing. Where is your Sunday road trip through Manitoba taking you?
It's taking me to one place and one place only, and I didn't want to reveal this until I actually went because I didn't want to give everyone a heads up as to where I will be going.
Yeah, well, they might follow you. The paparazzi might come,
Well, I'm not worried about them following me. I'm worried about them taking all the good stuff before I get there. But let's just say a certain favorite restaurant of mine has opened in Winnipeg Beach.
Dave's Salties, folks.
I will be going to the Interlake at some point this weekend to renew my enjoyment of Salties. And so that's my little tip for everyone in the chat this morning. Salties is open. I confirmed. I did speak to the owner this week. I did phone. And I was like, oh, you're already there?
So basically, there's going to be like an IC tweet up tomorrow at Salties in Winnipeg Beach off of Highway 9.
Correct. So I will probably be going there. And hey, who knows? Narcisse is good this time of year. The snakes are emerging.
I saw a tweet. Let me interrupt you there.
Yeah.
We'll get to hockey in a second.
Yeah.
So to cut you off and anybody else in the chat who was thinking about going to Narcisse, I saw a tweet from the province saying, don't go yet because of the cold temperatures and the late spring and all the water. It's actually very wet. And they said the snakes aren't yet out to do their snake thing. So they said maybe hold off on a week or so before going to Narcisse. But maybe Dave M knows better. Dave M might have his own scouting report.
Look, as much as I trust the idiots who run this province, they're the same morons who Narcisse closed last 2 years ago for an entire summer. It made absolutely no sense because it was outdoors and they kept the place closed. So
the snakes may have given you COVID. That's the only
logical
explanation.
With all due respect to the province, I'm going to just not listen to them.
Boys, there's enough snakes on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Okay, I think people can wait a little bit.
All righty, let's get started with the Winnipeg Jets. I want to start with the coaching search because there's been a couple articles written about it. There's an article in today's Free Press from our good friend Mike McIntyre, who lists a number of the candidates. Our good friend Murat Atesh in The Athletic earlier this week listed a number of the candidates. And the two names I want to start with are names that are familiar to people here in Winnipeg, and that's the names of Randy Carlyle and Scott Arniel. Because I've seen both of those names bandied about as potential candidates, serious candidates. If I'm not mistaken, Dave, and you could probably back me up on this, I thought Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick on 32 Thoughts mentioned both of those names as ties to Winnipeg. And we know,
although just sorry, Drew, just to interrupt you and
Yeah.
provide some clarity. Friedman mentioned Carlisle, speculated about Arniel.
Okay, there you go. And we know the connections, so you can put the dots together and understand why it could make sense. But from my perspective, neither of those two guys are at the forefront of my list of coaches for this next Winnipeg Jets team. Randy Carlisle hasn't been a coach in the league for almost 3 full seasons, if I'm not mistaken, and even then, I wouldn't say that his second stint in Anaheim was overwhelmingly successful. Scott Arniel had a horrible stint as the head coach in Columbus, and I haven't heard his name really discussed for any other future head coaching job since then. He's done a fine job as an assistant in Washington. So to me, if True North is only going to focus this search on people that they have ties to, I think that they are mishandling it. Now, maybe they very well could be looking elsewhere and broadening the search. But I think now more than ever, as we've talked about, the coach doesn't need to have close ties to the True North organization.
Well, first off, Drew, I would hope that, True North and the Jets are looking beyond Scott Arniel and Randy Carlisle, because that would be a huge problem for the simple fact that there's a lot of good coaches out there. Yeah, right. So if you want to start with Carlisle and Arniel, you mentioned it. I mean, we know the connections to True North with both of those individuals. And, just going back to what you said, Carlisle, not having a lot of success. I could be mistaken, but he did take them to the conference final that one year. I mean, that had a lot to do with.
That was the first year I think he was back in Anaheim, which is now 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
So it's
just
a real long time ago.
Well,
but you're right. You're right.
Look, I mean, how many people thought it wasn't going to work out with Daryl Sutter in Calgary? I'm not advocating for Randy Carlisle to be the head coach. If he is the head coach, yeah, I mean, great for him. All I'm saying is a lot of people, how many years was Daryl Sutter, at home, the ranch in Viking, Alberta, right? Like it was 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And then he came back and now Calgary's the second best team in the Western Conference, right? Based on points. So I just wanted to get that in there that, I mean, there is precedent for, a guy not coaching in the NHL for 2 years, 4 years, whatever, and then coming back and having success. I think that, you would hope that this is going to be as exhaustive of a search as possible, because this, as Dave mentioned last week, is probably the most important decision that, True North, Kevin Cheveldayoff, the management group is going to make, because, this is not a team that, is going to give a coach a year or two to kind of figure things out and then hope that, they get back to the promised land 3 or 4 years from now. This is a group that wants to get right back into the playoffs and hopefully go on a long run. We know that, right, guys, with, players like Blake Wheeler and Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele, guys like that with only 2 years left on their deals. I mean, we don't know what this team is going to look like from 2 or 3 years from now. We know that it's going to include, players like Cole Perfetti and Chaz Lucius and you would imagine, Ville Heinola and Dylan Sandberg, but, there's going to be a lot of veterans that aren't part of this team 2 or 3 years from now, just based on the fact that their contracts are going to expire. Not to say that, a player like, Connor Hellebuck won't be back, because I think, the Jets will do everything they can, guys, to make sure that they lock Hellebuck up. But when you're talking about Wheeler and Scheifele or Paul Stastny, I mean, he's not even under contract, right? So the point I'm trying to make is whoever comes in is going to have to turn this around really quickly. And there's a lot of good names out there, right? Like, I don't necessarily have one name, that I would like to see the Jets hire. Like, I know Rick Tocchet, who's been doing TV analysis, I believe for TNT or ESPN. A lot of people,
TNT,
would like to see TNT. So a lot of people, liked what Tocchet did with the Arizona Coyotes. I guess they were the Phoenix Coyotes back then. But, the hard-nosed guy, was a power forward in his playing days. A lot of Jets fans, I think, would like to see Rick Tocchet. I just don't know, how high up, Dave, he is on the Jets' radar. But you would have to think guys like Pascal Vincent, to me, makes a lot of sense just because of his history with the Moose. And, a lot of the players that he worked with while he was the head coach of the Moose are now in the NHL with the Jets, right? So, I mean, Pascal Vincent, to me, would, and again, I don't know if other people agree, but you would have to think that, he would be at the top of the list. And then when you talk about some of the other names out there, like, Alain Vigneault, Claude Julien, James Patrick, Todd Woodcroft, there's a lot of different possibilities. So it's really tough to sit here on May 7th and really, push or advocate for one coach or the other, right? To me, there's a lot of good candidates, but for me, like Scott Arniel and Randy Carlyle are not at the top of that list.
Dave, before we let you in, you see the question from Rob on the screen there saying, could we see the coaching search go across the ocean to Europe to pluck a coach from Sweden, Finland, or otherwise? And as much as it chagrins me, I'll give credit to Ezzy for throwing this out on Twitter earlier this week. He mentioned the name of Ricard Gronberg.
Past the legal curve guest.
Past the legal curve guest. He was on with us a couple of years ago before the radio station went kaput. You can find it in our archives. Very smart hockey mind. The head of the head coach for Team Sweden. And so that if he's the head coach for Team Sweden, the success that he's had on the international stage.
Coaches in Switzerland now, Drew, just for everybody who ZSC Lions in Zurich.
Which is a powerhouse program over in Switzerland. That's one of the premier hockey teams over in Switzerland. So, I mean, that would be an outside the box thinking for an organization that doesn't really think outside the box very often.
Right.
But I would have no problem with him being interviewed. I think when you have a coaching search, and this is the first real coaching search. Claude Noel got the job almost not by default, but, out of loyalty. And then Paul Maurice, there wasn't a coaching search. It was basically they contacted Maurice a couple weeks ahead of when they thought that the time might be up with Noel and said, are you interested? So this was the first real coaching search. And when you're conducting a coaching search, I think you're best off casting a wide net, listening to a lot of smart hockey minds, and picking and choosing and hearing what different people have to bring to the table, Dave.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. And look, I have no problems with everyone being on the table. I mean, to your point, you want to have as many names in the hat as possible. I mean, this is, as I said, this is probably the most important decision that Kevin Cheveldayoff and Mark Chipman are going to make for the next 5 years of this franchise, because it's going to set the course for this franchise. We know how important a head coach is. People say it's not that important. It is very important. And he or she, but likely he, will be the person who sets like I said, who sets the table. So how are you going to do that? Well, you don't do it by just thinking, who do we know? I mean, oftentimes when you're trying to figure something out, you go, okay, if I'm trying to make plans about something, okay, I'll pick the first 5 names that are easy, that come to mind quickly. But that's when you think, okay, but this has got to be exhausted. There's no rush. You don't need a head coach in place tomorrow. You don't need a head coach. I mean, in theory, you could have a head coach for the draft, but you don't need a head coach for the draft. Like Paul Maurice used to go to the draft. We'd interview him. He'd shake hands. He'd hobnob. There's no reason for a head coach. You need the head coach in place before training camp. In theory, because there's an assistant coaching staff, you're going to want them in place with a significant amount of time, at least I would say sometime in July, but it's May. You have time to wait for the Stanley Cup finals. Look, maybe there's a coach that's in. I saw one of the comments earlier about the assistant coaches in Florida or Tampa who's been maybe on a winning program. For Florida, not so much, but Tampa for sure. Maybe you want to pluck a guy like that. We've heard Lane Lambert's name. Our friend Josh Cooper of The Athletic, he wrote an article about when is Lane Lambert. He's currently an assistant coach in New York. A guy like Mike Vellucci, success in the OHL, success in the AHL, wins. There's a guy, doesn't have that success in the NHL yet, but maybe he's a guy who you give that opportunity to. Pascal Vincent, we know another guy who has good ties to Manitoba and, is now currently in the NHL with Columbus. So I'm not adverse. If they can get someone. Now, again, you have to look at this group, because you have to figure out, this group to me requires, like, I think in an ideal world, if you're ideally going, you'd give it an assistant coach like a Lane Lambert, a Mike Vellucci, someone who's seen as a keen hockey mind. That's what you need. You need someone who's an out-of-the-box thinker, someone who's, well, as you said, well-respected by NHLers, who has that sort of cachet, but he's an up-and-comer. That would be a good option. However, if you think you're going to try and win with this group, that means, well, are they going to respect the guy who is well-respected but hasn't won? Not that this group has won. That's the irony, of course. Like, who are they to demand anything? You guys have never won anything. You've got years of failings. So it's almost ironic to suggest that you have to bring in a winner to show these guys what it takes to win. But I think that's the truth, or for them to have the respect for that coach. I don't know. But I like I said, I just think you have to cast as wide a net as possible, and then you can narrow it down. And again, you don't eliminate a guy because he's close to True North, because I don't think that's fair. And I don't think it's fair to say you don't get Pascal Vincent, for example, or Mark Morrison. You don't get a head coach because you're too close. I think that's just as stupid as saying you're going to pick them because they're close. You cast a wide net, you create your initial list, then you whittle your list down. It's like a draft. You whittle your list down to 5 of your best candidates. Then you interview those 5, and you decide who you think is going to be best fit for this organization.
You make a lot of good points there, Dave. You're right. You don't wear blinders to only True North ties, and you don't wear blinders against True North ties, but you do need to cast, as you said, the wide net. We say good morning to everyone. Welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. It's a Saturday morning. We're live on our YouTube channel. The opening segment is brought to you by Betway, one of the most trusted voices in sports betting, both in Canada and all around the world. Betway is the sports betting app that puts you, the customer, at the forefront with a large selection of betting options and sports, as well as strong promotions and fair odds. What are you waiting for? Head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. I hear people, I've seen people, and I've talk about the dollars that True North is willing to spend. And admittedly, the last couple of years have not been good financially given the pandemic and everything. But remember, this is an organization. They didn't cheap out on Paul Maurice. Paul Maurice, when he re-signed here, was getting a decent sum. If I recall correctly, it was around $3 million, if not maybe a little bit over $3 million in reports at the time. So I think, the sky is relatively the limit in terms of who you want for a coach. I know Barry Trotz, if he was to become available, would cost a pretty penny, but I guess it depends on
Barry. Let me just squash that right off the bat. Yeah. Barry Trotz is under contract.
I know, but if he was to be released from his contract, is what we're saying.
But that's not true. Why would that happen? Why would that happen?
It wouldn't.
I'm not crapping on what you're saying. I'm just saying a lot of people keep talking about Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz is arguably, a top 5 coach of all time.
Oh, I know.
So I just don't see that happening.
Okay, let's forget about Barry Trotz then, because I don't disagree with you, Ezzy. I don't think Lou Lamoriello is making that.
But Drew, I think move. Just in your defense, I think his name has been mentioned 10 million times already. So as he's right, he is under contract. But a lot of people are mentioning.
And Dave, I would love to see Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz, it would be number 1 on my list of. I think number 1 on Chevy's list as well. I'm just saying, I just don't even know why he's mentioned anymore because he's under contract. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So in today's article in the paper, Mike McIntyre went through the coaching list, as I mentioned, and he put, we love Mike, so this isn't a shot at him, but he put both Joel Quenneville and Mike Babcock in the same paragraph as both of them not being possible because they're both toxic. I mean, Joel Quenneville is not, Mike Babcock is not toxic like Joel Quenneville.
Joel Quenneville will not be the next head coach of the Jets. I will guarantee. I know my guarantees mean nothing. Right. But I will guarantee you that Joel Quenneville is not going to be the Jets' next head coach. Just put it that way.
I would agree wholeheartedly with you there, Ezzy. There's no chance it's going to be Joel Quenneville. But I think it's a great disservice to Mike Babcock to be lumped in as if that what Mike Babcock did was as bad as what Joel Quenneville did. I mean, there's no
and Jim Montgomery.
And Jim Montgomery, another guy.
Yeah, but these are all Jim Montgomery, if I'm not mistaken, had some problems with alcohol,
right? Substance abuse problems.
So these guys shouldn't be lumped in. None of these guys should be lumped in together.
Well, no, Joel Quenneville's on an island of his own. Mike Babcock might have been a little mean, and
Drew, like we've had Mike Commodore on the show many times before. I would be careful by saying a little bit mean. I mean, this guy is terrorized players.
Okay. So his
let's not mention the Mike Modano 1,500 games thing. I mean, there's so many different examples of how big of an asshole Mike Babcock was.
Look, if Mike Babcock got the job here, I would not bat an eye. If Joel Quenneville got the job here, the organization would deserve to be absolutely raked over the coals. I think that Mike Babcock is worthy of a second chance, and I think if that second chance, came here in Winnipeg, I'd have no problem with that, and I think he would do wonders for this Winnipeg Jets team. when the Olympics were going on, when the NHL players were at the Olympics, who was the head coach? Mike Babcock. I mean, there's been other head coaches,
I'm
but
pretty
Mike
sure I
Babcock,
could have coached that team and they would have won the gold medal, though.
yes, you probably could have, but they hired him for a reason, and that's because they knew, and he was and he was considered to be the best head coach in the NHL at the time, and he could handle the egos of all those superstar players, which isn't easy to do.
How did he do in Toronto, though, Drew?
Well, he didn't do well in Toronto. Toronto was, things went badly in Toronto for him. So if you're buying low on a guy who's got ties to the Prairie Provinces, I would have
living in Saskatchewan.
I would have no problem whatsoever with Mike Babcock. If True North hired Mike Babcock as the next head coach, I would probably applaud the move. A lot of the other names I'd be a little more hesitant about because I'm not sure, especially the names I started the show with, the Arneals and the Carlyles, even the Vigneaults. But Mike Babcock, to me, does not deserve to be lumped in with the same toxic Joel Quenneville.
Well, I agree with you that he shouldn't be lumped in. I mean, we can move on here, boys, but I would say that, he shouldn't be lumped in with Joel Quenneville because very different, first off, different organizations, different scenarios. I mean, what happened in the Chicago Blackhawks organization was reprehensible. It's just inexcusable, right? So, I mean, what happened with Jim Montgomery, that was a personal issue, right? So I'll say this much, though, about Mike Babcock, and you're entitled to your opinion, Drew. I mean, I agree. Like, everybody does deserve a second chance. I would think most people do. I would just point to True North's track record and what they stand for and the type of conservative nature of the organization. And I would probably point to that not happening. But again, stranger things have happened. And I'm not saying that, he wouldn't be a good coach. I personally don't see it.
I don't see it either, but I think it should be strongly considered, Dave.
Look, I think your point, unless I don't want to overstep and make an assumption here, but I think your point was just that he didn't deserve to be lumped into the same category as Joel Quenneville, and that's fine. And look, everyone is entitled to an opinion. That's the whole point. That's the beauty of it, right? Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. And so I think ultimately that's why people in the chat can have whatever their opinion is, and we have our opinion, and we'll spout it off on this show. And Mike is entitled to have his opinion and write his articles the way he wants to write it. So I think ultimately what it comes down to is you're not like, I'll go back to my earlier point. You don't eliminate anyone unless it's something egregious. And again, Joel Quenneville, and we saw Andy Strickland, who covers the St. Louis Blues. He said there's going to be interest in Joel Quenneville this summer. So folks can say all they want about Joel Quenneville, but at the end of the day, these guys, all they care about is winning. They really do. They can pretend like it's about anything else. It's all about winning in the NHL. And these guys will do whatever it takes, even if it doesn't look good, even if the optics aren't great. Now, the Jets, probably not, simply because Quenneville, Chicago, Chevy, Chicago, so it's a little bit too all close together. But I'm just saying, like, I would, based on what Andy says, and Andy's pretty tied in, I wouldn't be surprised if Joel Quenneville, obviously the NHL has to approve it, but if he ends up back in the NHL. So all those who are saying he's never coming back, I wouldn't be so sure. I don't think he'll be coming to Winnipeg, but that's a horse of a different color. So especially on Kentucky Derby weekend, I should be getting ready to be making my Kentucky Derby picks, making lots of horse references. Anywho, getting back to this idea of a coach. So I think what folks need to focus on is the idea that the Jets need to cast as wide a net. So like I said, when Elliot Friedman comes out and says Arneal and Carlisle, because of their ties to the province, and then you listen to the rationale, okay, fine. And then Murat writes his article, you read his article, okay, Mike writes his article, and all you're doing is gaining information, right? Because sometimes there might be someone mentioned that isn't known to you, so you are gaining that sort of insight as to what this person could potentially bring. Like a Mike Vellucci, again, he wasn't on my radar specifically. It's not that I didn't know the name, but he wasn't necessarily on my radar. Then you look at his pedigree and you're thinking, okay, well, this guy's pretty impressive, what he's been able to do. Now he's an assistant coach with the Penguins. Is he going to be able to get away from there? Well, maybe not necessarily, right? Or like I said, Elaine Lambert. There are people.
Mike in his article also mentioned Derek Lalonde, who's an assistant with John Cooper in Tampa Bay.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why I don't think there's a negative to looking at everyone. So if you're looking at a Babcock, that's fine. Put him on the list with about 10 other people, and then you're going to whittle down your list. And you're going to try, like I said, you have to look at this Jets team and think, What are they? And again, that is as important a question for the brain trust at True North as it is to what, who the next head coach is going to be. Because ultimately, you have to decide what, with Connor Hellebuck in, the net for the next couple of years, with Blake Wheeler at the end of a contract that is paying him a lot of money, but he could still be a useful player. With what you've got, when you don't know what you have in Pierre-Luc Dubois in terms of contract, what you have in this organization, the up and coming, but you've got pretty much an established defense who are all signed to contracts next year. So will a new head coach be able to come in, put in a new system, someone who's proven, who can do something like that, who is a systems coach? Because let's be realistic, guys. The talent there isn't going to be a huge dispersal of talent. I mean, maybe there's something with Mark Scheifele, we don't know, but the Jets defense is all signed for next year. So there may be a move just in order to make room for a Dylan Sandberg or a Ville Heinola. But
the defense will not look the same next year.
I agree with you. I tend to agree with you, Ezzy, but I'm saying as of right now, they're all under contract, right? So realistically, and we do
you can trade contracts though, Dave.
You are allowed to do that. That is true. But what I'm saying is, as of right now,
breaking news here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Usually, when we do a UFA, RFA look back at the year, the defense has one or two guys who are UFAs. Not this year. Is all I'm saying. So what I'm suggesting is that the organization is going to have to look and like you said, Ezzy, they could make trades, but they have to decide what are they. Are they going to make room for these young guys? And if so, if you're bringing in this influx of guys, can you bring in a coach who's going to be able to teach this team to play a system? Because you're not trading 20 players. You're not getting rid of the entire team. So you're going to have most of these, even if you make 4 trades, which I don't think they're going to, I think it'd be under 2. Even if you make a couple of trades and bring in some new guys, you're going to have someone who can create a system that these guys can play in, because it's not about the personnel. It's about the system, I think, with this Jets team. So that's what they need to do.
And, I don't even know if we've mentioned him, and it's, one of my favorites of all time. Have we mentioned Torts at all? Like, I think
we haven't, because it's a non-starter.
Yeah, I mean, that was the irony, Ezzy. They used Torts in the picture for the Free Press article. I thought, yeah, use a picture of the guy who's the least likely guy to be brought in if you want Pierre-Luc Dubois to be signed for a long time.
I just want to get people riled up on Saturday morning.
Well, and that's what Mike said, and then Mike said that that Tortorella is got a 0% chance.
But it was just funny to use like Murat's article used Murat's article at least used like Pascal Vincent on the front cover, but like Mike's article used a picture of Torts. I thought to myself, like, this is crazy to use Torts, but I mean, him and Ezzy would have legendary post-game availabilities.
The opening segment has been brought to you by Betway. It's safe, simple, and fun to bet with Betway. So head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. When we come back, Jim Toth of CJOB Sports is going to join us for more Jets talk. Stay with us. It's a Saturday morning. We're live on YouTube. We're live on all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rolly's and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, it's Aaron from Bernstein's Deli.
That's right, Ezzy. I'm the guy who makes all your sandwich dreams come true.
So when you think illegal curve, what comes to you?
How about juicy chicken schnitzel, grilled salami, fried onions, melted cheddar cheese, and honey mustard on toasted, thick-cut city rye bread?
Man, that's like the holy grail of sandwiches.
And so it shall be known as the illegal curve sandwich.
The Illegal Curve Sandwich. Try it today at Bernstein's Deli. Find us at Corridon and Lanark or online at bernsteinsdeli.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Bottom of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Saturday morning. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you, here to talk about the Winnipeg Jets. Thrilled to be joined by the hairdo himself, Jim Toth of CJOB joins us on the program.
It's glistening, that hair. It's got a permanent sparkle coming off of it.
I don't know. I was gonna grab a hat, but I realized it was 9:29, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get going here.
No way. Let it breathe. Let it breathe, Jim.
I agree with Ezzy.
Together.
Exactly.
Just got a cut for you guys, by the way.
Wow.
Last night I said I'm going on a legal curve, and my main man Eric in Modern Man, who's a scissor magician, said, I love that show. And then he said, when are you on now? And I was like, that says everything. That says everything. That's why I'm excited to be on with you guys once again.
Jim, I'm not sure which Modern Man you go to. I go to the one in Grant Park Mall, but obviously, the bottom of the screen has, quite the hair going right now. Just
yes. Yeah. Tell Tony at the Grant Park one, I said, hello, I go to Eric. Eric used to be at Grant Park and he moved over to Garden City, and everybody says you go all the way to Garden. I go, it's worth the drive.
Wow. And he still doesn't know what where you're broadcasting, so you might have to
work on that. No, he's still, I'm that loyal, and he's still like, are you even working? Are you employed at all? Or so,
Jimmy, we brought you on to talk about the Jets. The season obviously ended, last week. Disappointing year, a lot of controversy, a lot of news, a lot of rumors swirling around this team. We were talking about the coaching search in the first 30 minutes of the program, so let's sort of piggyback on that with you. If you were doing the hiring for the Winnipeg Jets and for their next head coach, what attributes are you looking for in the Jets' third ever head coach?
Well, it's such an interesting question. And I think that one thing that if you are a Jets fan, you should be excited about is we're being told that it will be a vast search. And I think that's a good thing. I think that this team needs a fresh voice. And I think this team needs a new direction. And I think what that does is I don't know how to put it other than somebody who comes in, and I think they need a little bit more structure off the ice. Like, I think obviously something's wrong in the room. Obviously things have been awry in the room for a while now. And I don't think it's been one thing. I think it's been several things come up, and the players just run the room, and it's just too many people going in too many different directions at certain times during this tenure, the last 3 or 4 years. So I think they need somebody who can kind of come in and go, look, I don't know you, you don't know me. Let's just get going here. This is what we're doing. I don't even want to say and if you're not doing it, then because you would think that they'd be professional enough to whoever comes in the voice to listen and do it. And then the other thing I think they need is a little bit more of a guy that, or woman, or that comes in and sort of sets the tone and sort of, says these things are acceptable. These things aren't. So it's hard to say precisely. Look, I'm old school. I like the Babcock style. I like the Daryl Sutter style. I think that's, it's effective. I don't think it lasts long. I think you have 3, maybe 4 seasons that way. But I do think that a little bit's that needed. But I also understand that that's nobody nowadays, pro athlete or person in a cubicle, likes to be yelled at every week, likes to be talked to in a certain way. I think there's times, and I think you have to pick it. I like Paul Maurice's style, but I do think that he was a little bit too hands off when it came to things in the room. I like Mike O'Shea's style. I hear lots of things that, he's over the years that he's too friendly and he's too soft and he never talks bad about a player. But I've also talked to some players who go, you ever see Mike O'Shea play? Like if he doesn't like the way things are in the room, or if you don't, and the thing I like about a guy like O'Shea is I think, and that's what Maurice did. Like Maurice has that great quote, I can take you in that room and make you cry. And I think he did a couple times. And I think what happened was, if you don't respect the guy or you don't like what he's saying, then it doesn't matter anyway, no matter how much you do that in the room. But the reason I bring up O'Shea's style, and I'll throw Daryl Sutter in there, because what I'm hearing from Daryl, and Daryl said this the first time he got fired in Calgary, went to LA, and when he started winning, they said like how he goes, well, every time you get fired, you change. I mean, he said in any line of work, if you get fired, you should look at yourself. There's a reason why you got fired. It might not be all your fault, but you should change from it. And I think that's what Daryl is. I think he still doesn't take anything, and he's pretty strict and he does all that. But I think he's also like, the game should be fun if you're doing the work. And I think that's a great way to put what this Jets coach should be. The game should be fun. And you guys are really skilled and should win some hockey games, and it should be fun. But this is how you do it. And if you don't do it, like, it's not going to be very fun. And if you do, and I think we can look at that Calgary team and we can see when they had fun and when they didn't. Dean Evison is another one. Like, I drop these names because they're older coaches, but they're coaches that have evolved. So I don't really care if you're a veteran coach. I don't really care if you're a 20-year-old coach, just a couple of years as an assistant and get a job. It's that kind of brand of coaching. And I think we do that a lot. Well, we need an experienced coach. Well, we need this. Well, it's been proven often and again that a young coach might have some new, fresh ideas and be better for that. And we've been proven again, this guy's too old. He doesn't change his way. Like, sorry, but a Tortorella, I think it didn't evolve like a Sutter did, like a Dean Evison has, or play coaches like that. So the names I'm hearing, I like. I'm a little surprised Alain Vigneault is not in there. Like, I haven't heard a lot of Alain Vigneault's name. But like the names, I understand, like the Scott Arneals too. Like, that's the other thing. Like, people think Scott Arneal got one shot at a crappy Columbus team, and he is a hotly sought after assistant coach. And if you look at where he's been and always brought him back when the head coach has changed, like the Rangers and now with Washington, I mean, he's a highly sought after coach. Now, I don't believe that it has to be a Manitoba tie. I don't believe it has to be a Jets tie. I understand that that's how True North likes to, be loyal and think that way. But I think that in the long run, that's the coach I think they need, is a little bit more of a disciplinarian, but also a guy that, can take the team in a different direction than from what, the other coaches, Lowry and Maurice, kind of saw available, and then see what they can do. But I'm not tied to who it has to be, how much experience they have to have. I'm just happy that when I hear they're going to have vast interview process, that it's not 3 or 4 guys will interview him and in a month we'll name him. I'm hearing it's like a list of 20 and maybe down to 10 and then maybe down to 5 and some interviews. And so that's what I think they should do. Whether they do or not, I'm not sure. But I do think they need somebody that just a fresh voice, guys. Like, I think that core is stale. I really do. I think it's stale and set in its ways. And I think that's part of the problem, is when changes or hey, you got to be better, or we got to all be on the same page here. It's stale. It's been together so long, so that fresh voice can help change that.
And, Jim, just before I get to my question, you mentioned it could be a man or a woman, and to throw one name out there, I'm not sure if she would be given an interview for the head coach or the assistant coach, Corey Scheifele, who was on the women's national team that won the gold medal at the Olympics in Beijing. She's the first woman to ever be a assistant coach for the national men's team. Moose fans will know this name. Nolan Baumgartner is the head coach, and Corey Scheifele is the assistant coach. So that's a woman that's on the radar. A lot of people think that it would be just a matter of time before she's either an assistant coach or a head coach at the pro level. I'm not saying that the Jets are going to consider her, but I just wanted to throw that out there for some people who are maybe looking for some names of possible female coaches in the NHL one day. And Jim, I just wanted to ask you, I mean, Mark Scheifele, I know that you've been probably talking about it with Cameron, Jets at Noon on CJOB and the Jim Toth show. Mark Scheifele, I mean, it's the hottest, button issue right now in Winnipeg. And, we're not really sure where this is going to go, if anything is going to happen. But how important, I guess the question is, do you think that the right head coach would convince Mark Scheifele, would basically, set things straight and allow Mark Scheifele to play the next 2 years? Or do you think, it doesn't matter who the Jets hire as their head coach and Mark Scheifele is basically out the door?
I do think this can be repaired. Do I think it will be? No, but I think it can be. And I think that, so to put it in the scenario that I've been summoning Uprise, and then I'll sort of get to more of your, if a coach could, I think that I was 30 or 70-30 that Mark or a key piece in the core would go, 30% that somebody would go, because I know how tough it is to do a deal. And Mark's not a player. Look, and I've emphasized this whole week and started to a lot because I've been on Mark since the All-Star break. But I think that it's tough to deal Mark Scheifele because you have to get equal or greater value. And for everybody who is really on Mark for his attitude and really on Mark for his defensive play, he is an elite superstar in this league. And I had so many people this week question me, he's not a superstar, he's a star. And I'm like, no, he's a point-a-game player for 6 straight years in a row. And if he was better defensively, how good do you think he would be? And I started putting out some numbers from some other players and stuff. So it's harder to be a point-a-game player when you're not good defensively. I think Johnny Gaudreau will tell you that. Better defense leads to more offense. I think Kyle Connor will tell you that this year. Better defense leads to more possession, more chances, more offense. What would Mark Scheifele be doing if he was a much better 200-foot player? He could be close to 100 points, I believe. So he's that good offensively. He's a rare talent. But that being said, he's the most glaring one, but this team has a massive deficiency defensively, and he's the front runner for that. So when I heard his comments after the Seattle game on that Sunday, I switched it to 60%. He's going. He's out of here from 30. And I think you have to do that. I like Mark. I think he's been a really good, ambassador, but I don't play with him. I'm not in this city. And for him to talk about me when everybody else was talking about we, and guys, look, the things he said, and I hear this a lot, an athlete has a right to know where a team's going. An athlete does have a right to know. He should say, hey, what are we doing? What direction are we going? If he's an assistant captain with 2 years left on the contract, the last thing he should be talking about is me, unless it's how I can help this team over the next 2 years. Go wherever you want in 2 years. But so that just tells me he's essentially asking for a trade. Unless, and let's be honest, people go, well, you didn't actually say that. I mean, they need a coach. They need to do this. They need to. Okay, you want Mark to sit in an office, pick his coach, pick the style that they want to play and direction, and have everybody else on the team not do that and just do what Mark wants. And so, again, and I understand it. Like, Mark's in a world where he thinks to help this team win, he has to score. And that's what I think he thinks. So back to your question about the coach, I do think a coach could come in here and go, look, I have an offensive system that, but I think these conversations, as once a coach is hired, will happen. Like, I think a phone call will be made and he said, hey, I'm your new coach and hopefully you're here and I look forward to being with you. And probably I know what you said in your meeting or I don't know, but we're working for you. Then after that, it's up to Kevin. And if he's here at training camp, then the coach has to go to work with Mark. But I don't know a coach that's going to get hired maybe in June, prior to the draft. And Kevin says what he's trying to do with him is going to go out of his way to try and convince him to. But maybe Kevin does. Maybe Kevin hires a coach and says, hey, I need this guy to stay. So can you, and let me know what he says. And I've talked to him and this is what he's told me. So I do think a coach can do this. I just don't know if a coach should have to, or a coach would want to, or if Kevin Cheveldayoff and Mark Chipman would want him to. So anything's repairable. And I've said this before, if you don't get equal value to Mark Scheifele, then he better be here next year. And then you sort of go into the season. But if you can improve your team, and I don't mean a point per game player, if you can get like a second line center and something on the D, or a second line center, a fourth line player that can produce more, and a pick. Like it's got to be something that makes a team better. And I think historically, like Kevin Cheveldayoff sat there with trade requests on his table for 3 years and he's never pulled the trigger. Jack Roslovic wanted out, and he only got out because Patrick Laine took him with him. So I don't think it's a done deal for sure, but I think where it's heading, it's clearly, I think I'm 70% sure Mark Scheifele won't be a Jet next year. If he is it repairable? For sure it is. But I think it's pretty clear the onus is on Mark. And again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. We all heard what he said, but it sounds like if it's not going in the direction he wants, he would like a change of scenery. And that's what we're going on. Look, I don't think it's going to go in the direction you want, Mark. So I think you're going to get a change of scenery.
I think it's sorry, Drew. I was just going to say it's been almost a week since those comments, and I still can't speak for everybody here, but it's almost still unbelievable that he said what he said, because there was a lot of selfishness in his response.
Yeah, and guys, look, when I was around Mark since he was drafted here, and I was in the room for years, and I haven't been for a couple of years now. This isn't a bash on Mark Scheifele. Like, the Mark Scheifele I know is a good guy, and he wants to win. It's just the way he wants to win, and then it's clear that it's a little bit more about him. And some athletes do that. Some athletes think that things need to be centered around me for us to be victorious, and I do that. So I'm not like sitting here. I haven't talked to Mark in a season or 2 or 3. I'm not trying to bash him. I'm just going off what I see in his play and what I see. There was times, guys, clearly under Dave Lowry that he just didn't even care to play the system. He was just on his own island. And I think that's why you hear the Kyle Connors, the Nick Ehlers. I mean, Stastny's going to tell you anyway. But I thought it was telling when Ehlers and Connor and some of the other, Josh Morrissey, I mean, those guys, Lowry, Morrissey, Scheifele, they spend Stampede together in Calgary in the summer and stuff. When Josh Morrissey's saying stuff like, we got to be on the same page and we got to play the system and stuff. I mean, so the what I read between the lines is simply, look, do those guys hate Mark Scheifele? No, he's not Evander Kane. They like him. They're friends with him. Are they unhappy with Mark Scheifele? I think so. It's like any one of us. If the 3 of you go, let's get Toth on the show, and one of you says, no, I don't want that guy on the show. I mean,
we all say yes. We jump at the opportunity, but Jimmy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you can be friends, but if your friends let you down, it happens all the time. If your friends go in a direction they don't know, if your friend you've been lifelong friends with wins the lottery, and all of a sudden a year later he's got a pretty big head, and he's, I think that's what's going on here. I think that Mark has got some people around him in his camp, and he mentioned it. My family, my agent. Well, what's your family and agent saying? What's Adam Oates saying? And people blame Adam Oates for his and Mark's been real tight with Adam since Paul Maurice arrived, like real tight. I remember end of the season scrums, asking him, do you like Paul as a coach? Did it go well? Yeah, Paul's nice. And it's like, Adam always tells me that we got to, and I'm like, oh, but what's Adam get paid to do? Adam gets paid to work on your skills and make you score more. That's what Adam Oates gets paid to do, to make your skills better and stuff. And I'm not blaming Adam. Like, I'm just saying that there's some people around him that he listens to more than, and I just thought it was clear that he didn't listen to Dave Lowry. And I still think that it's, when Maurice left, all the things that he said, somebody asked him, I think it was McIntyre, that said, did you talk to Blake about this? He goes, my captain. Yeah, I talked to him, and we shook our hands, and he nodded. He gets it. And then we hear these words. I think, what does he get? He gets, I try to tell him too. And I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but that's all we can go on. And that's, as these things mount up, it's just, and look, I think this is one of those deals that Mark goes somewhere else and he's around different people. And maybe he's like, oh, I better toe the line here and play this way a little bit more. I mean, it might be one of those deals that works out for both, but I do think a coach can fix it. This is a rare case if it's fixed in my mind.
Saturday morning, we're live on our YouTube channel. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Jim Toth of CJOB Sports is our guest. We're talking about the Winnipeg Jets.
Jimmy, earlier in the week, Elliot Friedman was on with our boys Kenny and Rennie, doing the Kenny and Rennie show, and he talked about Connor Hellebuck. He said the Jets got good news in that he is, quote, okay where he is. I've heard as long as the plan is to contend, that Hellebuck is okay. Now, that might have come as a bit of a surprise to anyone who thought Hellebuck wasn't going to be okay, given the fact that he's under contract for another 2 years. So it's not just Mark Scheifele, right? It seems like, and it's not a huge surprise that there are other players that are dissatisfied with perhaps the direction of this franchise. which leads you to this idea that, okay, it's good that Connor Hellebuyck is okay, but the Jets really, really need to hit a home run this summer, because otherwise this franchise is just going to be completely floundering.
The biggest thing they have to do this summer, which is weird when you're talking about potentially trading a serious core piece, is find that right coach. That's the biggest thing they have to do. If they don't get this right, you're just going to have more players who want, and I will say this, and you guys know this, every team has 3 or 4 guys a year that ask for a trade for whatever reason. There's guys that go in there and go, I really like it here and it's awesome and I like you, but I see 5 guys ahead of me on the depth chart and I want to go somewhere else. Or it could be something as simple as, you don't play me enough, I hate it here, blah, blah, blah. There was a rumor going around a couple months ago, and I chased it, that Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck asked for a trade. Just a rumor. I couldn't substantiate it at all. And I think Elliot obviously has way more connections than I ever will, and looked into it. And it was good to hear that Connor Hellebuyck had not asked for a trade, or seems happy. But I always revert back to, and I'm a Manitoban now. I've been here since 2005. I love it here. It's obviously why I'm still here. But it's Winnipeg. And I always have that outside perspective that if you're winning here, it's a great place to be. If you're not going to win, or you think for the next 2 years you're not going to win, players, if they have some clout, would want to go somewhere else. And I just think that's the way it is. Now, this was an interesting year because I don't know if, like, Jack Rosvick's a prime example. Jack Rosvick was in the NHL. He wanted more ice time. He thought he should be a top 6 guy, asked for a trade reportedly. And I did confirm a little bit of that. So he did ask for it to be moved. But he's also a guy that I think that's like, if I'm going to play third line and do something, I'm going to go do it somewhere else. Like, I think I can go somewhere else, play top 6, but I do think that was leaning towards. But that being said too, like even Jackson, like when the Columbus came back, all I heard was Jack shook everybody's hands in the media and was like, how are you guys doing? Good to see you again. Like, good guy too. Just players have a right to, say what they want to say, do what they do. But it is a town that, like I said, if you're not going to win, and if it's like, I think it's become stale here with some of these guys, rinse, repeat, try to get in the playoffs, fight to get in, awful defensively. They might want to change. So, but it was refreshing that Hellebuyck doesn't. And that's kind of, Dave, that's kind of what I think you needed to hear from Mark Scheifele. I think if Mark had sat down and said, look, I'm really frustrated. And I thought we were going to take a massive step. I understand that when you have a good team like we've had for 3 or 4 years, that taking that next step is tough. But I thought this year was going to be the year. We don't have a coach. I don't know what direction we're going. I want to know that, but hopefully we get it together this summer. It'll be a big off season for us and we'll see where we can go. And then he can go into his exit meeting and go, I don't want to wait around. Get me out of here. But so on one hand, I'm very happy he was that honest. But on the other hand, I think it's just, I can't imagine a guy in that room, no matter how close a friend you are with Mark Scheifele, heard that and said, oh yeah, do what's best for you, man. So it was good to hear that Connor Hellebuyck doesn't want or wants to be here. But guys, this is why that
obviously Jim Dave doesn't want to be here because he just
Dave
left the studio. I'm not sure what's happening. There he's back now.
Dave is like, I'm out of here. He's talking way too much again, like he did last time. But I think that that's why this is really important, because we all know these contracts. Like we all know that in 2 years Connor Hellebuyck's out. Mm-hmm. And unless you're contending for the Stanley Cup within the next 2 years, why would you re-sign here? Other than you like it and you like the team. But if you want to win, so you have to contend in the next 2 years. It's a very important hire. And then what Kevin does also with the roster is very important. And Connor and Ehlers are under contract. Morrissey's under contract. I think this is fixable. I think they have some work to do, but they have to contend or the team's going to look drastically different. The one thing people say to me when they go, Kevin Cheveldayoff deserves to be fired. I'm like, I don't know why. He's drafted. There's not a team that's drafted better.
Well, hang on, Jimmy. Let me stop you right there.
Okay.
In the last 5 years, and granted, the team has been, drafting later in the first round and later in the rounds in the last number of years. But I would say, his track record previous to that was very good in terms of drafting. But since then, has he really done much in terms of drafting players that have fit in on this team, that have done well on this team?
Well, I'll say this. Usually third round and higher make the NHL, right?
Right.
So who's he drafted in the third round or higher? Like last year was Perfetti.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Looks pretty good.
Yeah.
The year before that, Gustafsson, we all thought was going to play this year, and he had 2 really bad injuries. And who was before that? Ville Heinola. Ville Heinola and Dylan Sandberg aren't going to play?
Yeah, they are. But I mean,
I get what you're saying. If you're looking for a 4th or 5th round guy to come through, then you're right.
I'm talking even the first rounders. I mean, I think the track record of first rounders, I mean, Perfetti notwithstanding, obviously it's, Perfetti and Lucius are too soon. But I mean, I think that people point to a lot of the great picks that he made, and he gets full marks for those. But I think they also gloss over the fact that he traded up for Logan Stanley, that he drafted Christian Vesalainen, who doesn't look like he's going to be a player. I mean, I think there are some misses there that do need to be acknowledged.
There's a lot more hits, though, Drew, than
for sure, Drew. But
not in the last number of years. I think he's 50. I think he's 50-50 at best in the last number of years. What have you done for me lately?
I don't know about 50-50, Drew.
I don't even, Drew. Sorry, Jim. I'm going to quickly interrupt because I don't think Drew knows what he's talking about.
Well, go ahead.
I mean, Logan Stanley and Christian Vesalainen are not.
Do we know what we're talking about? By the way, I don't think any of us know what we're talking about.
I mean, first of all, it's 2016, 2017, right? And if you look at the 2017 draft, wasn't a particularly good draft. So Vesalainen was a shot in the dark. They were hoping they would get something in him. So look, you're not going to hit on every first round pick. How many first-round picks have we seen come into the Jets organization after years with somewhere else, and they weren't able to achieve what they were hoped? So the reality is the drafting success and the ability to sign guys to long-term deals, I don't really think can be called into question. And if you're going to blame the drafting, really, Kevin Scheifele isn't really responsible. You want to pin that blame. You can pin it on Mark Hillier, who's Marcel Como, of course, was the original head of pro scout or amateur scouting. Then it's Mark Hillier. So. I mean, again, I would say that it's more. I don't think there's been a problem. Look, guys,
amateur scouting is only a part of the puzzle, boys.
Yeah,
I mean, pro scouting is a part of it, and player management and making trades and signing guys. I mean, everything. You have to factor everything in.
I don't think Chevy should have gotten the extension. That's my personal belief. Everyone else is entitled to whatever they want, and I respect Jim's opinion as well. But I do think that it is fair that, for all the successes he's had, and he's had a ton of them, that it is worth mentioning some that weren't as good. That's all I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to discount the successes that he had, but there were some misses there.
Yeah, and that's a valid point. I don't want to say, Drew, that he's been perfect.
Right, nobody's perfect.
Logan Stanley's playing in the NHL. He might not be playing first round level, and Vesalainen, I'll give you that. But so I'll do it this way: rack up all the first round picks over 11 years. If there's 2 misses, I think that's way above average. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the second and third. But you're right; you have some points here. Here's what I wanted to say about it. He's drafted extremely well, with some misses. Then he's signed amazing contracts.
Yes,
he's made some really good deals under the gun. Like under the gun when guys were out of here. One had to go and the other one wanted to go. And he's gotten really good return. He's also on those deals waited until he got good return, which some GMs don't. They just try to fix it. And then you add that all up and you look at this roster coming into this season. I don't know of a GM that was more active the last 18 months to fix the roster. He reacquired a Paul Stastny and then re-signed him. He traded for 2 top 4 D-men that everybody was sure was going to be good to go. So my point is even those, we could argue with those, one of those deals didn't pan out. Fair enough. I get that. But would you rather have a GM just, he took his shots. He's got a couple of misses, but his misses are way below anybody else's. So when people ask me about whether he'd be back, I said, I think they got to look at everything, including the GM. But now that he's got a 3-year deal, I think that 3-year deal is what he's earned to fix it. I think he's earned the right to look at this roster, to deal with what he's got dealt with, and to fix it. So I disagree. The 3-year deal surprised me. I thought he'd get an extension or 2-year, but I think he's earned the right to fix it.
Last question for you, Jim, because we talked about this at length on last week's show. you look around the league and there's, that extra layer now between the general manager and the ownership in a lot of different cities, that president of hockey operations role. They have it in Vancouver. They have it in Toronto. I think they even have it in Pittsburgh now, if I'm not mistaken, Montreal. Do the Jets need that extra layer? It's becoming more and more apparent how hands-on Mark Chipman is with this organization and with the roster and with the hockey operation side of things. From your perspective, do you think the Jets would be well off to go find that president layer, or even promote Chevy to that president layer and bring in a new general manager? Not that I expect that to happen, but do you think there needs to be another layer there?
Why don't they hire Paul Maurice as president of hockey ops? And your show goes off the air.
We had a nice run though, Jim. 13 years, not bad.
Yeah. Great run. I'll say this, Drew. Like, I don't know if it's needed, like has to be done this summer. But the way I look at that idea is, if you see a person that you really think could help this organization, then I would make room for them. I like the idea of a director of hockey ops. And maybe it doesn't have to be above Chevy, but it could be working with him. But the reason I say this, I put out a tweet a couple weeks ago about if I was a team, but if I was the Jets, I would call Jennifer Botterill.
Mm-hmm. We talked about that last week also.
And I got a lot of feedback on it, which was great, positive, but I also got a lot of feedback about enough with the wokeism, enough with, and it upset me a bit.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Do your research. And the reason I said that is, as we watched from the All-Star break this season for the Jets unravel, and the things we heard being said and some of the play that we saw, the more I watched Jen Botterill talk about unity, team chemistry, talk about being an absolute superstar at Harvard, and how in her second and last year as captain had to make sure everyone felt involved. And she, if you look up her, she scored a ton at Harvard.
Yeah.
When she came out of Harvard, I was around the national team in Grand Prairie for training camp in 96, 97. I was covering that camp, and she was like a younger rookie, I think, and had to find her way. For everybody who, I know she's down on fighting in the game and all that, and some people fed me back on that. And I said, that's weird, because that was her game, team toughness. Like, she brought some grit and some grind to the team. So there's a difference between fighting and being a tough hockey team. Then she became a star on the team. And then in her later run, she had to revert to being, I think it was third line, role player and all that. So when I look at that and I hear her speak as the Jets season wound down the last 2 to 3 months, and I heard her, I'm like, they need to make an assistant VP of ops, and she doesn't have to deal with the cap. She doesn't have to deal with your salary. She doesn't have to, but she could sit in a room and go, this is the kind of player I think we need, or this is the style of player I've heard that, we could go. And then she could do wonders for, we got to make sure everyone feels a part of this. We got to make sure that even David Gustafson knows that when he comes up, you're not just coming up to fill in and blah, blah, blah. Not that doesn't happen now, but good Lord, guys, how much do you need that in the room right now that go, it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about you. And I'll even go back to line A, like wanted to play in top line minutes. I'll go back to Andrew Kopp, who said, I believe I'm a second line center on this team, but I'm not going to ask for it. I'm going to prove it. There's a disconnect. There's two guys right there who one's going, give me this. And the other guy's going, I think I am this, but I'm going to show you. That's a disconnect in the room. And we always focus on this guy doesn't like that guy, or this guy threw a tracksuit in there. Like, there's got to be some, and even Blake Wheeler, and you guys know how I feel about Wheeler, but even Blake Wheeler has said twice in the last 3 years that that's on me. I've got to, I took it way too serious and stuff. And so somebody like Jen to come in and have seen so many personalities over the years and try to find chemistry and cohesiveness in a 4-year span between Olympics, when you're just playing so many games a year and training together so many games a year. I just think a voice like that. So do they need, no matter what, to start the season with a director of hockey ops or a VP or assistant GM or assistant hockey ops? I don't think they have to find that by training camp, but I would definitely look at stuff like that. And I would look at what's going in that room. And if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, I go, you know what? I might want somebody to bring in to help with this, because it's a different perspective, it's different unity, and I think somebody like that would be valuable. So it doesn't have to be Jen even, but to answer your question in a long-winded way, I do think that if they found the right person, I would make room for that in the front office.
Always insightful, always opinionated, always a great guest, Jim Toth from CJOB. Thank you so much.
Never
for joining us
drafted
this morning.
No matter how good the GM was, never even scouted.
They're lost, Jimmy. That's all I can say about that. They're lost 100%.
I'm glad, Jim, that we could overcome that little bit of tension between you and Drew there, because for a second I was thinking I might have to, step in. But
look,
glad
Jim,
that we got through it.
There's been tension between me, Dave, and Ezzy for 13 years. It only works well that we might as well get a little tension between Jim and myself.
Hey, you guys know better than I do that tension is good. It's good talk. It's good. We worked it out. It's fun. It's always good.
Everybody, anybody who thinks that I was being serious there, by the way, we go back before the TSN 1290 days with Jim. We were colleagues.
Yeah,
we're all good friends. So obviously we're joking. I mean,
I love this story. Tell it. I know you got to go. O-Dog's wait. He's like, who's this clown Toth? Come on.
No. We got 25 minutes before O-Dog's coming on.
Ask O-Dog about Maurice. He has some great stories about O-Dog or about Maurice. Like I don't think he liked him at all very much. I don't want to put words in his mouth when he was in Carolina. And now he'll say that now I kind of get it. Like I really like his style. I really like him as a coach. I don't know. I want to put words in. But ask him about Maurice. He'll have some good stories on Maurice.
We have many. Yeah, we have over the years. He certainly is always. He's another guy who's always opinionated, who always comes with a intriguing lens on situations. So
I'll leave your viewers with the story, as in Drew and Dave. It's a great one. I tell it every time that these guys had their own radio show at Red River, I believe, and I tried to put them on TV at Shaw Cable. And they were in meetings. Deals were being done. Agreements were made.
Yeah. It was between Shaw and the Disney Network.
And they had to back out because they got an official radio deal. And it never happened. But these guys could have been on your television years ago. But they actually got some money, which is weird. I was offering nothing. And they took the money.
No. There were some lunches. There were some gift certificates. There were a few things.
I love telling that story, guys, because you guys have put a great show together and you were very successful. And I knew you guys would find success even when you're at Red River. And that's why we tried to put you on Shaw. And I'm glad that you went to radio. And now look at you.
Now look at us, indeed.
As I tell every intern, I'll work for you one day. Today, I'm working for you guys.
Jimmy, thank you, buddy. Have a great Saturday. Have a great weekend.
Enjoy the rest of the show. Enjoy your weekend, guys. Thanks for having me anytime.
Thanks, Jim. When we come back, more on the Scheifele rumors. We'll talk about potential trade returns, trade destinations. How do the Jets get value for Mark Scheifele if they do end up trading him? And as Jim mentioned, Jeff O'Neill, the O-Dog, at the bottom of the hour. Stay with us Saturday morning. We're live. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah, sorry. That was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rolly's and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, it's Aaron from Bernstein's Deli.
That's right, Ezzy. I'm the guy who makes all your sandwich dreams come true.
So when you think illegal curve, what comes to you?
How about juicy chicken schnitzel, grilled salami, fried onions, melted cheddar cheese, and honey mustard on toasted, thick-cut city rye bread?
Man, that's like the holy grail of sandwiches.
And so it shall be known as the illegal curve sandwich.
The Illegal Curve Sandwich. Try it today at Bernstein's Deli. Find us at Corridon and Lanark or online at bernsteinsdeli.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Saturday morning, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Big thanks to Jimmy Toth for joining us, Jeff O'Neill at the bottom of the hour. Well, if you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, leave us some comments, rate us, review us, all that good jazz. That's your job here as viewers and listeners of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Jim always brings an interesting perspective, so always good to hear from him. Quick notes on the playoff games that are happening this afternoon. Tom Wilson out for Washington. Ilya Samsonov gets the start in goal for the Capitals. That game beginning, I believe, at noon Central Time. For those that were asking, the Moose were defeated in Game 1 yesterday. Minuk Moose Minute coming up later on in the program, and the Winnipeg Ice dominant at home against the Moose Jaw Warriors. 6-1, the Ice were victorious last night. So there's your quick roundup. More news coming regarding the Moose and more analysis later on in the show. Ezzy, go ahead.
Yeah, just before we, continue the Jets talk and get into Mark Scheifele, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't wish a very happy birthday to my wife, Naomi, today. So want to get that in there. We're going to have a nice little night out tonight, but I just wanted to wish the love of my life a happy birthday. I love you, and thank you for letting me continue to do the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
And a reminder, Ezzy, and for all those listening, it's Mother's Day tomorrow. So make sure that your kiddos, Ezzy, treat Naomi very well as well. In addition to
they treat her well.
Celebrations.
They treat her well every day. I mean, I don't care how they treat me, but of course they know that they have to treat Naomi well. So absolutely, happy Mother's Day to every single mother out there, because you do have the toughest job in the world, and you deserve probably 20 days a year, but you definitely deserve your own day.
Anybody that has to put up with you on a regular basis certainly deserves everything they get and then some. Let's get back to the Jets. The Mark Scheifele question is, of course, in addition to the coaching search, is what's going to hang over this franchise throughout this offseason. And I saw Dreger and I saw Friedman saying the market, of course, for Mark Scheifele is going to be robust and there's going to be interest. Can the Jets, even with a robust market and a market that's filled with interest, can the Jets get equal value back for Mark Scheifele if they trade him this offseason? To me, they're trading him when he's at his most diminished. Now, his contract and the appealing nature of it might override any of the negativity that's surrounding him. But, how difficult is it going to be for the Jets to get that equal value or better value back in a trade for Mark Scheifele if it happens this offseason?
Let me start off with, there was kind of a couple of things there, Drew. I don't agree at all that he's at his most diminished, because, first off, his contract is extremely attractive to a lot of teams. I guess what you're referring to is everything that's gone on with the Jets organization over the last couple of years. But I don't know if I would just say there's definitely an aspect of, his value being a little bit lower, but I just wouldn't say that. That's all I wanted to say. I wouldn't say that he's at his most diminished, just because of the fact that he's arguably still in the prime of his career, and his contract is, I think, team friendly. That's all I wanted to say, but we could, disagree with that.
I agree that it's a, but I'm saying, for a guy who's never had really any negativity swirling around him, he's got nothing but negativity swirling around him at the moment.
Sure, but that's negativity around the Jets organization, right? So, I mean, that's Captain Obvious. But what I mean is that for another team would probably look at and say, well, we're acquiring a player and it's basically a clean slate, right? So, to answer the more important part of your question, Drew, I don't think it's going to be easy to do a 1-for-1 trade. Like we've talked about it so many times. The Ryan Johansson for Seth Jones, or the PK Subban for Shea Weber, or even the Line A and Roslovic for Dubois. That's not really a true 1-for-1, but let's be honest, Roslovic was thrown in there, right? So I do think it's going to be hard, to find that 1-for-1 type of trade. So it's possible that you are looking at, maybe a forward and a defenseman, or a forward and a prospect, or maybe, a draft pick is even included. But, it's hard for me to sit here, in early May and say that there's an obvious team or an obvious player, in return. I've been on the record. You boys know, I've said this many times before. I would love in an ideal world, I realize it's not an ideal world, but you would want to see a number one defenseman come back the other way, right? Like the Jets are the deepest at forward. They've obviously got some good young, D prospects, and, Josh Morrissey, Neil Pionk. I mean, they've got some good defensemen, but I think you guys would agree that they're deeper at the forward position, right? Like going into the year, what did everybody say? The Jets have the best top 9 or top 12 in the league. So that's what I would ideally like to see, but I don't know how easy that's going to be, because last time I checked, NHL general managers don't love to trade their number one defenseman. Like I don't think the Rangers are, champion at the bit to trade Adam Fox. I don't think, Joey Sakic is champion at the bit to trade Cale Makar, right? I could go on here, but
yeah.
So I think that, it's going to be really interesting to see A, if he is traded, and B, the type of return he's going to get. And, goes back to what we were talking about with Jim Toth. I mean, Chevy's track record when it comes to, these big trades has been really good. You could probably argue that he's won the majority of the big trades going back to the Evander Kane deal to Buffalo, right? So it's really hard to say right now what the return would look like, but that's what I would like to see. I would like to see, the Jets bring in a number one defenseman. And I do think you could get that by trading Mark Scheifele.
Dave, if Mark Scheifele is a shiny loony, do the Jets need to acquire in return a shiny loony, or can they acquire 3/4, 2 dimes, and a nickel in exchange for their shiny loony?
No, I don't. I mean, look, what are you going to get? Jim mentioned, are you going to get a second liner? Are you going to get a fourth liner and a prospect? This team isn't it goes back to what I said earlier in the show. What are you trying to be? Are you trying to be a team that's in it to win it, with a goalie like Connor Hellebuck under contract for 2 more years, and he's expressed his happiness to stay, knowing that this team is going to be a contender? Well, if you are, then you have to get equal value, or as close to equal value as possible. You need a number one something. You either need another number one center, or you need another number one defenseman. You need a guy who's going to complement Josh Morrissey to be. We saw what Josh Morrissey did. Josh Morrissey made himself like like a reborn player this year. And if you could provide that sort of structure to this team, then that's a significant amount. It's significant. Now, of course, you're most likely moving out. And the question becomes, from a depth perspective, is your forward depth can it sustain a loss of a guy like Mark Scheifele, who is a point-a-game player, even in the down year, a point-a-game player? I don't know that it can, right? Again, it comes down to that idea. Can you teach this group structure, which goes back to this idea of the importance of a coach who's going to bring in a structure that this team will adhere to? And so, can you get, can you give Nikolai Ehlers a chance to be the first line, right winger? Can you put Blake Wheeler on a line with, Adam Lowry, where he might be more effective, and give him some power play time? It's a question of using the personnel. You don't have a ton of forwards who are coming up through the system right now who are ready to take that next step. David Gustafsson is one. Morgan Barron may be another. Are those guys going to come in and blow your socks off? Maybe not, but maybe if they can all play within a system, and we talked about it, you have to decide what kind of coach you're going to bring in, and then you're going to have to figure out the kind of players you want to fit within that system. So, getting back to your question though, Drew, I do think you need value. I just don't think you can afford to bring in a bunch of guys who are maybe going to fit, and you can't afford to not hit a home run. Mark Scheifele is under 2 more years on a contract. That's very favorable from a cap perspective. So what team is, you're telling me the New York Rangers, who might not have Strome next year, You're not going to tell me the New York Rangers wouldn't love to have Mark Scheifele locked up? And the New York Rangers, I mean, look, the Jets stole the Rangers colors, so maybe it's appropriate that all the Jets players that the Jets no longer use, Trouba, Kopp, Scheifele, I mean, they seem, Andrew Kopp seems to have worked out quite well in New York, so who knows, maybe he ends up being their second line center option. But, I just don't think you can afford to have a miss. If you want to talk about it, I mean, goes back to that idea of this is one of the biggest decisions Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to have to make. I didn't love the comments, obviously, from Scheifele. I think that's something you say privately. I think that sometimes these guys, I mean, maybe it was intentional. Maybe he intended on blowing this up because he threw the grenade, right? And a lot of the comments after the fact were, there's still shrapnel from Mark Scheifele's comments the next day when Kevin Cheveldayoff was speaking. And he, whether it was unintended or intended, and sometimes you have to wonder which it is, and we don't know the answer, only Mark Scheifele does, and those closest to him do. But, was that his intention? Because he definitely diminished his tradability. I mean, and it comes back to this idea of how many guys have asked for trades but have kept it quiet. Mm-hmm. And there was no need, really. I mean, how easy is it to punt on questions that get asked in media availabilities? It's the easiest thing you can ever do. So the reality is that, you could say, oh, yeah, like I wasn't happy with the play of the team, but I wasn't happy with my own play. We're going to have to evaluate some things in the summer, and that answers the question. He didn't do that. He chose not to. And again, as a result, the firestorm erupted, and now you're dealing with this. But I mean, ultimately, Kevin Cheveldayoff and the brain-trusted True North cannot afford to get this one wrong, because if you do, and you trade Mark Scheifele, and you don't replace his offense, and you don't acquire a defenseman who's going to be a number one defenseman alongside Josh Morrissey to give you, think about if you could slide this defense down, right? Sure. You can bring in a Sandberg. You can bring in a Heinola if you need to. I mean, I think Sandberg has shown that he deserves to be there. But if you can bring those guys up and you can get them established and you slide everybody down in terms of, responsibility, what does that do for your organization?
And can I just throw in one name that I've said to you guys off air. He's left shot, but he plays the right side because Vegas moved him from the left side to the right. Like right now, I haven't gone through every single team, but Dave knows I was trying to really I was playing matchmaker. Basically, just like people, played matchmaker for me and Naomi. That's how I met her.
Matchmaker, make me a match.
Like Scheifele straight up for Shea Theodore is what I'm doing. And Shea Theodore is under contract for 3 more years at $5.2 million. Like Shea Theodore to me is a true number one defenseman. And then you ask yourself though, like, does Vegas, they just acquired Jack Eichel less than a year ago. Like, sure. but we know that, I mean, wouldn't you like to have, Chandler Stevenson, Jack Eichel, and Mark Scheifele up the middle? Like, to me, that's the type of trade. And again, I'm not saying that I think that's going to happen. The chances of that happening are much lower than the chances of that not happening. But what I'm saying is, like, someone like that, like Mark Scheifele for Zach Werenski. Werenski makes a lot more money, and he's a left shot defenseman. I think Werenski makes something like $8.5 or $9 million. I'd have to check here. But to me, like a guy like Shea Theodore, who's a similar age, right, 27, I think, and he's got 3 more years left on his deal at 5.2. Like, that's the type of trade that I would like to see. And I wonder if Chevy is considering that. We have no idea, right? Like Chevy could be, focused on retaining Mark Scheifele. But if they are going to do a 1-for-1, I'd like to see forward defenseman, somebody like Shea Theodore or Zach Werenski.
Well, look, I mean, those trades make sense, Ezzy, and I appreciate you throwing the names out. But for a lot of this past year, when we were doing the 82 post-game shows, what were we lamenting? We were lamenting, first of all, the Jets' D-zone structure, because that was atrocious. But we were also lamenting for a while there the Jets' inability to score. Subtracting Scheifele is certainly going to impact that area of your team. But is there also a flip side that could say better structure, better D play, better overall consciousness regarding your defensive attitude could lead to more offense even without a guy like Scheifele in the lineup? That's a question for either of you.
Yeah, I would say, my
how much of a concern is it if you subtract Scheifele's offense from a team that for a while there really wasn't scoring a lot of goals? Dave, I see you nodding. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think it's definitely a factor, and you have to look at the numbers for Mark Scheifele and how many goals did he cost his team ultimately, right? And what did the stats show? And they show that it was costly. Now, there's a lot of other players on this team, again, And that's why I said it comes back to defensive structure overall. Hello, Barry Trotz, because that's what this team needs. This team needs to be able to play defense. And from defense comes offense. How many times have we heard this? I mean, it's tired, but it's the truth. And if you play a sound defensive structure, you can get the opportunities to create offense. So you take control of the puck defensively in the defensive zone. And you know what? If you have defensemen who can make a great first pass, I mean, it's not a shocking concept. You control the puck. I mean, look, the Moose, and we'll get into it later, they lost the game last night. They controlled the play. They ran into Devin Cooley, who they scored 5 goals on in 30 shots, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. He was hot yesterday, right? So he stopped everything except for 2 shots. He stopped 40 shots yesterday, right? But he came in, he was an 8.98 save percentage overall in his career. So, I mean, like, every once in a while you have that. But, I mean, if you control the play, if you control the puck, if you have guys who can play within a structure, you know what? Hey, more often than not, you're going to create opportunities for your team to score. You're going to create opportunities for your team to create offense. So I think the Jets, and I've said this before, if you create an environment where defense is played properly and it's not just a free-for-all, well, then, you know what? You're going to create opportunities where these guys can score. And I think that to me is ultimately what's the most important. So if Mark Scheifele can come back, you can keep his offense and play in a structure, great. Because I don't think his offensive abilities is something that is easily replicated. But conversely, if he's not going to play in that structure, he has no desire and he wants to continue to just, quote, work on his skills, well, then you have to get rid of him and you have to bring in someone who's going to help formulate that, whatever your team decides it wants to be, and then you go from there.
Much more about Mark Scheifele, much more about his future, much more about the Winnipeg Jets offseason as we go here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. When we come back, Jeff O'Neill is going to join us. We have to pay some bills and thank our lenders. We'll be right back with more of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube. We're live on all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, that was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rollies and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, it's Aaron from Bernstein's Deli.
That's right, Ezzy. I'm the guy who makes all your sandwich dreams come true.
So when you think Illegal Curve, what comes to you?
How about juicy chicken schnitzel, grilled salami, fried onions, melted cheddar cheese, and honey mustard on toasted, thick-cut city rye bread?
Man, that's like the holy grail of sandwiches.
And so it shall be known as the Illegal Curve Sandwich.
The Illegal Curve Sandwich. Try it today at Bernstein's Deli. Find us at Corridon and Lanark or online at bernsteinsdeli.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal. Starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Bottom of hour number 2. Welcome back. Saturday morning. It is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dave Minuk in the top right, Ezra Ginsburg in the bottom middle. I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Remember, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, rate us, review us, leave us some comments. We always appreciate the feedback. IllegalCurve.com, of course, is still your home for all your latest Winnipeg Jets, Manitoba Moose, and Winnipeg Ice news. So be sure to check out the website on a regular basis. Want to make mention of something before O-Dog joins us momentarily. Our good friend Mitch Peacock.
Yeah.
We've known him well. He announced on Twitter yesterday that unfortunately, him and his family are leaving Winnipeg.
Not unfortunately. Fortunately, he's
fortunately for them, of course. Unfortunately for us, professional opportunities, family, stage of life, etc., are taking them back to Calgary. But I'd be remiss if we didn't say thank you to Mitch for his years of friendship. Dave, you used to do Moose broadcasts with Mitch, so you know him very well. He's been on our show many times. So wanted to say a big thank you, farewell, see you soon to Mitch Peacock, our good friend who's heading back to Calgary.
Yeah, Mitch was a great guy. I really enjoyed. He asked me to do the color on the Moose broadcast with him, which was kind of exciting for me. And it was a good opportunity, and I really enjoyed doing it. I obviously continued to do it when Mitch left, but he's such a great person. I mean, he is so kind and considerate and smart, and he really is a consummate pro, which is what I wrote on Twitter last night, because it's the truth. He really is just a great person, great guy, great broadcaster. Did a remarkable job of representing our province. And yeah, you're right, Drew. We're losing him. He's gaining. He's going to be closer to some family. For him, I luckily bumped it. I was taking my niece for dinner a couple nights ago, and I bumped into Mitch and his family. So that was kind of fun that he told me that was happening. Unfortunately, that it was happening, but he's a great person. And so, yeah, you wish him all the best, and we'll still see him on Twitter. But yeah, we won't be able to casually bump into him in a night out in Winnipeg.
And now, Ezzy, for news in your realm, I mean, we are, of course, very loyal to the Illegal Curve sandwich at Bernstein's Deli. Had some lovely soup from Bernstein's yesterday. But I'm seeing, in the pregame to lead up to the Capitals and the Florida Panthers in Washington, in the press box right now, Ezzy, I think you can still get there in time. They're serving fried chicken sandwiches on cinnamon buns. So if you want to head over to Washington, we totally understand if you have to leave the show. And
we should be talking to O-Dog about this as well, because that sounds delicious. I mean, I'm going to have to take a nap if I have one of those sandwiches, but yeah, that sounds pretty good.
A mere 1,650 calories for that delectable sandwich. So, which makes me wonder how many calories are in the Illegal Curve sandwich, but that's a separate issue for another day and time. Ezzy, you want to send maybe O-Dog a text, see if he's still going to be able to join us? Dave, I'll let you get started with some recap. You mentioned it briefly in the last segment. Not going to play the intro just yet, because I expect there's going to be a more fulsome opportunity. But tell us what happened between the Moose and the Admirals last night in Milwaukee.
Well, I'll sum it up thusly. Devin Cooley. I mean, of course, Connor Ingram is up with Nashville. He's filling in for UC Soros, and he filled in more than admirably. And Ezzy and I were talking about it during the commercial break. The playoffs have stunk, as far as I'm concerned. The first round is usually my favorite round. You're watching hockey all night long. So many games, so many overtimes. It's been 2 overtimes. The triple overtime between Pittsburgh and New York was great. I will say that. The overtime between Nashville and Colorado was also really entertaining, because Colorado is like a cheat code watching them. They play it at like just another level.
Yeah.
Connor Ingram was fantastic, and Devin Cooley got the call in net for the Milwaukee Admirals. And the Moose started off a little tentative. They don't necessarily have a lot. They don't have any real playoff depth on that team. So, it was a new experience for them, but good lineup, and they dominated. They outshot Milwaukee for the most part, controlled the play. A couple of, unfortunately, it's like playoff hockey. A couple of mistakes end up in the back of their net. Milwaukee scored a goal after the Moose had tied it. CJ Cease, who's been on fire, he's been really good for Manitoba. After he tipped home the shot to tie it 1-1 with 0.3 seconds, Dave Gustafson should have fired a puck along the wall, tried to fire it up the middle, and got stopped at the blue line. Milwaukee held it in and then scored late in the second period to take the lead with, like I said, with 0.3 seconds to go in the period. Kind of a killer. But one thing we've seen from this Moose team is they never really are out of a game. They fought back. Declan Chisholm early in the third tied the game 2-2. So it looked like things were going well for Manitoba. And like I said, they continued to control it. You thought maybe this game's going to go to overtime, but instead what ends up happening is that they had a late power play with about 6 minutes, 6:14, I think, left in the third period. And then, I'm going to use a Drewism. Attention to detail was lacking at the end of the power play. Milwaukee capitalized 2-on-1. Mikhail Burden, I didn't love his play on
the Moose had the power play, or the Admirals had the power play?
No, the Moose had a power play to end late in the third period. The Admirals, as Schneider came out of the box, they took advantage of it, went on a 2-on-1, and Kovacevic tried to block. Sandberg was a little bit out of play because I think he's thinking about change. And then, like I said, I didn't love the way Mikhail Burden played it. He's a bit casual on it, and it ends up in the back of the net. Moose had some good pressure. They tried to equalize it, couldn't, so they'll get a chance. Game 2 tonight. And you know what? This is probably a good thing for them. Gain a little bit of adversity. They were coming in feeling good. They had pounded the Abbotsford Canucks 13-1 in their 2 games the week before to end the season. So provides a little bit of adversity. This team won't. The one thing is, and we talked after the game, I talked to head coach Mark Morrison, I talked to Declan Chisholm after the game. They're not going to change their style. Declan felt like they had dominated the game. And Mark Morrison told us after the game, he said, listen, the one thing we need to focus on is getting guys more in front of the net. We're getting the shots. We're getting the good shot volume, but we need to create some guys in front, create a little, use the big bodies, the Gustafsons, the Morgan Barons, those Austin Baganskis, those guys to create a little havoc in front to get those rebounds. And because Milwaukee was doing a good job of clearing those away.
There you go. Game 2 of the Moose and the Admirals later on tonight. Dave will have coverage of it on his Twitter feed at ICDave, and also on our website, illegalcurve.com.
Yes, and just to quickly answer Joe from Winnipeg, because it seems like it's I'm not sure, not a lot of clarity, so I'll just provide some. AHL TV is where you can watch the away games. TSN is showing the games at home. So you can listen on CJOB. You can watch it on AHL TV throughout the playoffs. And it's $30 US if you want to buy that package. And that gives you access to all the AHL games. Not that you guys might be interested in watching, the Ontario Reign, but they do have Nelson Noje, who fired 7 shots on net. They're into the semifinals in the Pacific. And then you can watch the games at home on TSN. So that'll be Wednesday for game 3. And then obviously, if necessary, game 4 and game 5, which is Friday and Sunday. All 3 of those games, if it goes 5, will be on TSN. And again, presumably all the home games for the remainder of the Moose playoffs would be on TSN.
There you go. Dave M with the Moose update, and the Winnipeg Ice 6-1 victorious last night. They're going for game 2 later on tonight as well. Yes, David. And
hold on just quickly, because I think, who just made the comment about scoring, about Burden scoring? Oh, yeah, here,
sorry, Rob Mahoney. It's on the screen
in front of me. And Drew, you didn't even mention the Jets signing yesterday, because the Jets goaltender, who they signed yesterday, finished goaltender, 2-year ELC. I'm going to let Drew, because Drew's the host, I'm going to let Drew try and pronounce his name. But it's like Oskari Santorini or something like that. I've been to Santorini. It's a nice island in Greece. But the point is, he's really good. His numbers were phenomenal in Liga this year, and the Jets signed him to a 2-year ELC. The reason I bring him up in response to Rob's comment is because he scored a goal in the lesser of the leagues in Finland a few years back.
Exactly right. I'm going to go with Oskari Salminen, as I believe how you pronounce it, but it was a good effort nonetheless. We're pleased to welcome back to the program our very good friend, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, joins us on the show. Jeff, how are you? How are things this morning?
I got to tell my guy Ezzy there that I was going to snap on him because I clicked the link from 2 years ago. And it was like, a message came out that said, "You're backstage right now." I'm like, what the hell's going on here? What are these guys, rock stars or something?
And we lost him. Jeff O'Neill just came on.
Just decided to leave.
Yeah, Jeff O'Neill came on just to tell Ezzy he sucks.
I'm not sure what happened though, because O-Dog had the right link, so I'm not sure what he was talking about. But hopefully he comes back on, because he was only on there for about 10 seconds.
He came on to bash you and then leave. I think that's actually what all of our guests should do from now on. Is just
he was left on a high note.
Yeah, we have 50 guests a show. They come on, they bash Ezzy, and they quickly leave. I can't see it. I think that's a new format we should adopt for the off season.
Recipe for success, I think.
Yeah, hopefully Jeff will be able to log back in a second and join us for some insights into all around the NHL. We know the playoffs are going hot and heavy, although they haven't been that entertaining. I would agree with that comment, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in that front. And as I mentioned, the Winnipeg Ice, they're looking as dominant as they did in the first round, looking to win their second consecutive game tonight on home ice. Jeff is back. Let's try this again. There you go. Did Ezzy do something wrong again? Because we can kick him out if we want to.
No, it's just kind of my start to the morning. As soon as I connected with you guys, all of a sudden my iPad just apparently was on 0 batteries. So got to fix that and ready to go.
There you go. We appreciate you joining us, inconveniencing yourselves. We like it though, O-Dog. You know, I wanted to start here in Winnipeg. We'll probably touch on the playoffs, I would imagine, as well. I don't know if you've paid attention to sort of the end of season press conferences that came out of here with basically most of the team talking about we need to be better. And then Mark Scheifele coming out and talking only about himself. And it was all about I need to decide my future. I need to see where this team is going. I'm in my best physical state. I'm at the pinnacle of my career. When you have an entire dressing room talking about we, and then you have, you know, one of your superstar players talking about what does that tell you about the Jets dressing room?
Well, first of all, I know Mark Scheifele. I like Mark Scheifele. I don't play hockey with Mark Scheifele, and I don't know what he's like in the locker room or what his teammates view of him. But when you just look at the whole scenario, big picture, maybe it's time for a separation for both parties. Maybe it's better if Mark Scheifele goes and plays somewhere else. Like I said, I know him through a mutual friend. We've had a few conversations here or there. I can't comment on what he's like in the locker room because I don't know, and I'm not going to speculate. He's been there a while. He's been a great player for them. But you're seeing it in different places. You look like a team like Dallas Stars. They've got kids like Rupe Hintz, the Robertson kid, and the younger guys kind of took over the team, and they're kind of a bigger voice, and they're the go-to guys, and they kind of, you know, it's difficult when you're the star player and you're seeing different players kind of come up and take over things. Maybe first power play unit, somebody else is going over the boards instead of you. And maybe that's what's happening in Winnipeg. You look at Pierre-Luc Dubois, you look at Connor, you look at Ehlers. Maybe those are kind of the go-to guys. And Blake Wheeler, I mean, I don't know what you're going to do with Blake Wheeler. I kind of have some thoughts on him that I like. Obviously, you guys, you want thoughts and opinions, but I really don't want to get into my opinions on that. But maybe he's not going anywhere. So unless they just say go away and we're going to pay you to go away, that's probably something in Winnipeg that's not going to happen. But as far as Mark goes, maybe it's time for something different for him and for the team where he can go play somewhere else. And I'm sure at his salary, that would be quite a haul, you would think, coming back. So maybe it's just time to go play somewhere else, and it's best for everybody.
You know, O-Dog, just kind of sticking with the Jets, and we obviously want to ask you about the Leafs and Lightning series because, you know, we just want to make sure that...
No, you don't. I know you don't, so don't ask about it.
We just want to make sure Leafs fans aren't getting too excited over there.
It's like Dennis Bayak said, Ezzy, when he was saying his kind of goodbye to the fans. He's like, you know, I think he caught himself when he was like, Toronto's the mecca of hockey. And then he was like, he's like, just ask them.
Love it. Absolutely love it. But we were talking quite a bit earlier in the show, the first half an hour, first 45 minutes about, you know, possible head coaching candidates. And I'm sure you've heard, you know, a lot of the names out there, and there's no shortage of names. We could probably come up, you know, with more than 10 names, probably around 20 names. But, you know, when you think of like who would be the prototype of the Jets' next head coach, I mean, we know that, you know, old kind of familiar faces like Scott Arniel and Randy Carlyle have been mentioned, but you know, what about some of those more veteran coaches? Like who do you would really fit in? Like, is a Claude Julien a type of guy, you know, that you would bring in, Alain Vigneault? Like, who to you is one of the top candidates out there for the Jets?
Well, there's two trains of thoughts, guys, where it's like maybe there's a younger, different voice, and you don't have to go back to the well with some of these guys. But then you look at a scenario like Calgary, where Daryl Sutter goes back there, and all of a sudden magic happens. But I mean, you just look at, there's a guy that's sitting on the TNT broadcast, Rick Tocchet, that's just sitting there and from my understanding, he's an awesome coach and he's a great communicator with guys. So it's difficult when you think about possibilities or what you perceive to be good fits, and then all of a sudden it's outside the box and they bring in somebody that you totally wouldn't think. I mean, there's coaching hirings that you just think are ridiculous, and they are ridiculous, and then all of a sudden you get feedback where the players can't stand the guy, and you're just like, well, you could have called me and told me that, and because I would have told you the players are going to hate this guy after a year or whatnot. So there's a bunch of different directions. There's a bunch of good coaches that are assistant coaches or coaching in the American Hockey League that deserve a chance. I know one of my close friends is Kevin Dineen. He coaches in the American Hockey League. I think a guy like that deserves another chance in the National Hockey League. Rick Tocchet, I mentioned. And then there's the usual suspects. There's guys that are sitting around that don't have jobs that could go in and do kind of what Daryl Sutter did, or the perceived hope that could happen where you just get a veteran guy in there with a ton of experience. But you got to get a read on what the players are about. These players are so much different. I just think their attitudes and, you know, how they view things and themselves and their inflated views of themselves. It's just not the same game. So you got to have somebody in there that understands that these guys are like that, and you got to find the best fit. I mean, I'm not a Mike Babcock fan, just as a guy. I've heard enough where I'm like, I don't know, that's just not my kind of guy. But you know what he can do? The guy can coach hockey. So is that an option where you look at it and say, oh, maybe we got to get one of the best coaches? But maybe the players would hate that. They'd say, don't even think about bringing Babcock. Who knows? There's all different kinds of scenarios. The balls are in the air. I'll tell you what, though, getting the right guy and making it work is a big decision, and the outcome's big for Chevy, I think. He's got to get that right.
You know,
Jeff,
I was just going to ask you to follow up on that a little bit, because how much input do you think that teams seek from their players? Do they just go to the leadership group and speak to like a Blake Wheeler, a Mark Scheifele in theory, you know, a Josh Morrissey, Adam Lowry, and say, where do you guys think we should go in terms of a direction? Do you think that's a smart move from an organizational perspective? Or do you think this is just something they have to kind of make the decision and then they have to decide? Because, and we were talking about it last week, Elliot Friedman on our friend Kenny and Rennie's show talked about how Connor Hellebuck is happy in the market as long as they're contending. Now, Connor Hellebuck wasn't a name really being even mentioned as someone who wasn't particularly unhappy in the market. So when you're hearing that, when you're hearing the guy who's the number one goaltender in this market, he's happy now because they're contending. I mean, you just said it. How important is this, and how much role do you think the players would have in making that decision?
Well, first of all, they missed the playoffs, so what the hell are they contending for this year?
Most disappointing team with Vegas.
Yeah, but that's what I just mentioned, Dave. You have to be considerate, which I find crazy. And I guess it's just an old school mentality I have, where I was brought up and played in the NHL, where it was kind of like family life a little bit, you know. It was like, this is the rules and this is how it's going to be, and you make a bunch of money and you just shut up and do your job. You don't have a say in what the coach is, but ultimately today that's different. And I think it would be foolish not to talk to the players and say, what are you thinking here? Because a part of me thinks you can't have the players running the operation where they pick and choose the coach they want. They get a cushy coach and a cushy life and blah, blah, blah. But I think it would be foolish not to get some feedback, because ultimately the feedback from the players should be if they want to win and they think they have good enough players to get the best coach available. Not a guy that's going to be their best friend, not a guy that's not going to yell at them. So it is a big decision. I typically would say, players, here's a coach. And sometimes when it turns into a country club, you get the Mike Keenan scenario where you bring in the guy that everybody hates because you want to turn the ship around. But that stuff just doesn't happen anymore. So it's going to be fascinating. There's a bunch of good guys available, and we'll see which way they go.
You know, Jeff, not specific to the Jets, but the team or the organization talked about accountability and how there was an absence of accountability. For the last part of the season, they really dwelled on that. When you're in a dressing room where guys aren't accountable for one another, how does that get resolved short of removing one of those players from the room?
I don't understand the philosophy of saying guys weren't accountable. I think it's just not like a large portion of your team not playing well. I mean, when you say not accountable, what the hell are you talking about? Is it like not going up to a guy and saying, oh, you suck last night, you better be better next game? That's the coach's job. I mean, you can hold yourself accountable and hold meetings and say, guys, we got to be better, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I mean, be accountable for yourself. They had a bunch of players that weren't good enough or not being close to being good enough to get them in the playoffs. I mean, maybe their goaltender was one, wasn't he? Wouldn't you say he had an off year?
Well, I mean, I think that he wasn't as good as he'd been in previous years, but a lot of that had to do with the Jets just being so woefully, so woeful in their own zone. That,
okay, then that's coach's responsibility, and that's players not good. That's players not being good enough. Mm-hmm. So that's management, that's coaching, holding their players accountable. I mean, players are usually buddies. I mean, you can only go up to your buddy, your teammate, and say, you know what, you need to be a little bit better. Like, there's enough going on in a player's mind where you can't play psychologist and assistant coach at the same time. You got to take care of your own business. You got to perform. You got to put up stats. You got to take care of this. You got to be physical. Guys can't babysit each other 24/7. You got to hold each other to a high standard where it's like, this is what we do, and you got to do it to toe in line. But I mean, I was so caught up in what I was myself and just trying to do what I do to help the team. You can maybe pull a guy aside but sometimes you pull a guy aside and say, you know what, you need to be better. And the guy just looks at you and you know what the response is, it starts with an F.
Yeah.
Okay. O-Dog. Now sorry, go ahead.
Say that players didn't hold, they weren't accountable to each other. The whole organization is accountable to each other, and you answer to each other every single day of the year. But player versus player, it's like, the odd little, hey, you got to be better. It's like you're your own kind of industry, and you got to perform, and you got a lot on your plate. To be telling another guy to play better, that's a lot.
Well, then let me. So if a team has a coach that they don't, I don't want to say don't respect because that's probably too harsh, but players can identify when a coach might be in over his head. How quickly does that message, whatever he's trying to sell, get lost in that situation? Because players would know a fraud. Again, my words, not specific to anybody, it's not specific to an individual person. But players would know when their coach is just not able really to sell them. Selling them a bill of goods without having the to be able to back it up.
I got to tell you, I'm probably the worst person to ask that question because the way I approached it is I'm not trying to sound like a smart ass. I was a smart hockey player. I understand how the game was supposed to be played. I understand the system that our team was supposed to do. It's not that complicated. If you're in the best league in the world, you got to be a dummy not to be able to figure out what you're doing out there. So as far as coaches coming in and doing stuff on the chalkboard and talking about this guy does this, I knew all that. I needed a coach to motivate me if I wasn't playing well or I wasn't playing hard enough. I didn't need a coach. I never looked at a coach and said, oh, this guy might be a fraud. I'm like, this guy changes the lines and he's going to yell at me if I'm not playing well. And that's what I needed from the coach. So this idea of coaches losing respect or not having respect, I mean, how do you not have respect for the guy that's coaching your hockey team? Why? Because you think he's stupid? Who cares if you think he's stupid? You still got to go out there and play your ass off. And if you think he's that dumb, just go out and work your ass off even harder for yourself and for your teammates. You didn't hire the guy. The team did. I don't know. There's so many different elements to it. But like I said before, it's a big call for Chevy, and he's got to get it right with that because they need to double down next year and circle back quickly and show that was just a blip on the screen and say this core is still confident that they can get the job done and be a contender. I thought they were going to be the best team in the Central this year after the changes they made on the defense core and Hellebuck the way he can play. And it turned out to be a complete disaster. So they need to bounce back. And I believe they can do it. I don't think you just start saying, oh, that guy needs to be fired and fire this guy. Maybe they need to be changed, and Mark's situation is something that they're probably going to address, whether they talk to him about staying or they ultimately move him. But maybe you just have a bad year. It happens. Tampa's done it in years past where it's like, bad year, you know what? We get Hedman. We'll be back in the playoffs. Bad year, we get Steven Stamkos. And they don't just blow everything up and fire people and fire this guy. They obviously made some changes, but maybe they're a good team that just had a bad year. They had injuries. They had some stuff to deal with. People didn't play as good as they could have, but maybe it's a bad year. They got to circle the wagons again next year.
Absolutely. And it gets back to what you were saying before, O-Dog. Chevy has to nail whoever that coach is. He has to be the right guy. Get this team at the very least back into the playoffs.
It's got to be a home run. Like, it's got to be a great start. And the guys are talking in the press. They're, oh, this guy's awesome. I love the way he communicates. I love blah, blah, blah. It's all got to be dialed in.
Absolutely. Just like we're dialed in with you right now on Saturday morning. Okay, so now we have to get into the Leafs Lightning series. Huge Game 3 win yesterday. Do the Leafs have control of this series now? Looked like the Leafs might have control of the series after Game 1, but obviously I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek here because we know that the Lightning are going to have a big response for Game 4. But just what is your kind of overall assessment of this series? Because we know that the Lightning was probably the worst first-round matchup that the Leafs could get.
Yeah, you know what? They've passed some tests, guys. And when you're playing a team like Tampa, who has so much talent, so much pride, and so much desire to win, there's no kind of taking control of a series against them until you shake their hand and tell them to get the hell out of the rink because you beat them. That's the only time that they'll have command of the series, is when the buzzer goes and they get in the handshake lineup, whether they win or lose ultimately. But I talked about it on SportsCenter last night. With every step that this group has, there's anxiety amongst Leafs Nation because of their past. 3-1 against Montreal last year. It's like, okay, guys, let's wrap this up and get on to Winnipeg or whoever wins that series. And we're finally going to win a first round. And they took a dump and lost that series. And so it's hard to trust, right? It's hard to trust. So, you know, that's what has to happen with this team. They passed a big step last night, though. One of the steps up the ladder was responding to Tampa Bay's response, because they came back and showed in Tampa, or in Game 2, we're the champs, and you're not gonna take 2 from home. And then there was some anxiety building up going back to Tampa, where it was like, oh boy, here comes the flex at home, where they're going to beat us 6-1 and 7-1, and we're going to get our ass handed to us. And now we're in desperation mode to win a hockey game. So it's only one win. It's only one game last night. Well, it's 2 wins, but the one last night just counts for 1. But it was a big step. They showed that it's like, okay, we're going to go into home ice, your home ice, and pick up a big win. And getting another 5 past Vasilevsky. Not saying that they're in his head, but they're not like, oh my God, we can't score on this guy. So they got some good momentum going, and they got some guys that need to step up and contribute to help them along, and then they might have something.
You know, Jeff, what's the other series that you're really paying close attention to? To me, I was saying to Dazzy before the show got started, this has been a disappointing first round because I love the OTs. Only had the 2. That one OT between Pittsburgh and New York was awesome, and Colorado looks like they're on another level. Connor Ingram was fantastic in the way he played for Nashville, but. Are there any other series that's kind of caught your eye that you've really enjoyed? Because to me, so far, the first round has been a little disappointing.
Well, yeah, to tie in the disappointment with kind of looking forward to watch it, I think you got to talk Calgary-Dallas, where it's like they got those 3 guys that all scored 40 goals, and they were the best line in hockey, and all of a sudden they're looking for something. And it's amazing how the pressure points ramp up, because it's like Game 3 in Dallas, Calgary is going to be like, man, if we don't kind of get one tonight, we could be looking at a must-win scenario in Game 4. So that's what I love about the playoffs. It's not about a calculator and talking about expected this or expected that or possession. It's about what you got inside, and if you can dig in and find something. And Calgary is a team that's faced with that. But I know what you're talking about, and trust me, when you're sitting on the SportsCenter desk, you don't want any damn overtime. So you can shove it with your overtime wishes. Because I don't want to sit there any longer than I have to wait till the game's over. If they go into triple or quadruple overtime, I'm leaving at 3 a.m.
Very reasonable. You got to look out for number 1. Jeff O'Neill is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. O-Dog, always appreciate your time. Always appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for joining us.
I'll send you the right link next time. Sorry about that. My game.
No, buddy, it was my fault. I was digging through my emails, and it was from 2021. I saw Ezzy on it, and I clicked on the link, and it said, "You're waiting backstage."
You know, and O-Dog, there's a lesson here. As soon as you're done with any email from Ginsburg, just immediately delete it, because no good can come from having him in your inbox.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of crypto emails coming up.
That one, and I know exactly what you mean.
Thanks, O-Dog. We'll talk to you soon, Jeff.
Thanks, brother.
There he goes. Jeff O'Neill joining us here on the program. A fun way to wrap up this Saturday morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Who wouldn't want to spend till 2 a.m? I mean, we did the Illegal Curve post-game show. I was in downtown Winnipeg 2 a.m. after Kyle Connor got that triple OT winner.
Not all of us did the post-game show,
true.
Dave.
That's
it was
true.
me and you. Ginsburg was asleep. Oh, I can't stay up these late hours.
I'm actually pretty sure Ezzy was still in the chat, if I recall correctly.
I think you were right, yeah.
So I'm pretty sure Ezzy was there. He just didn't want to participate.
You know what? It was fun doing the post-game shows this year, boys, but let me tell you, I'm pretty happy that, we've wrapped them up because there's a lot more spare time, such as I can, rip carpet out of my basement and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, we're going to look forward to next year. But yeah, the extra days off during the week, I'm definitely not complaining about that.
I think we should have maybe a live broadcast when Ezzy puts the new carpet in. I think that could be very entertaining.
No. We're hiring somebody for that, Drew. I mean, I definitely cannot do that. I don't know how to do that myself, but yeah, there's a few other things that we have to take care of. The basement's a bit of a mess right now, but I'm not doing it.
Well, there you go, Ezzy. You can then we'll wrap up for this Saturday morning. We'll let you get back to your heavy lifting, and of course Naomi's birthday. So you're going to be showering her with gifts and with attention and all that good, all that love that you're going to
singular gift, not gifts, but one gift.
Oh, okay.
I'm joking.
It's a little awkward now. Then.
No.
Sorry,
There's multiple gifts. Yeah. Drew, you can't just give your wife one present. There's got to be like at least 15, 20 presents. Right?
Well, I mean, I figure she keeps you alive for 360, 364 days of the year. So on the 365th, you should shower her with some. I
made her breakfast in bed this morning, nice and early, around 7:30. Made her breakfast, Pop-Tart. She really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's a delicious.
So,
strawberry, raspberry.
Yeah, I made a little eggs, as my daughter Ariella likes to call them, squished eggs, scrambled eggs, and a little toast. Little granola with yogurt, little raspberry on top. Made her, a nice cup of coffee. So she liked it.
There you go. Look at you bringing your A game. Too bad you didn't do that for us on the program. That's okay though. You can only have so much A game at a time.
You just get a bag full of poop lit on your porch. That's what I give you every year for your birthday.
Who let you on my property, Ginsburg? Dave, final word to you.
No, there's no final word, but just people want to hear it, so I'm going to give the people what they want.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Are you actually doing a Minuk Moose
Minute?
No,
I've already done my Minuk Moose Minute.
Okay, you just wanted.
But I think T-Cone, Pauly, Frosty, a lot of people wanted to hear the Moose call, so we give the people what they want. We're a show of the people and for the people. So
game 2 tonight, Dave, 6:00.
6:00. I will have it covered on my Twitter. I see Dave will have a recap on illegalcurve.com. And starting Wednesday, it'll be on TSN. I won't be on TSN unless I can somehow break into the booth with Meecher and Finker. But
you should be on TSN.
No, I
mean, for that matter, we should all still be on TSN.
I was contemplating. I thought there might be. They might have asked me to do a little bit of intermission stuff, so we'll see. But I don't think that'll be on TSN. But if it is, I'll be wearing my best suit. So
ahead of the curve with Dave Minuk of Illegal Curve Hockey. It just rolls off the tongue. Want to say a big thank you to all the sponsors who make the Saturday show, the post-game show, the website a possibility. Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Bernstein's Deli, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, and Grid Park. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. I won't be here next Saturday. I'll leave it in the good hands of Dave and Ezzy. I have a family event out of town, but I'll be back 2 weeks from now.
Drew, I would say we're going to miss you, but we won't.
I know you won't. Don't worry. In the interim, remember, illegalcurve.com is your home for all your latest Winnipeg Jets, Manitoba Moose news, Winnipeg Ice coverage. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Smash that like button. Smash it right now.
Podcast. That's right. Smash the like button.
If you're on the fence right now about smashing that like button, do it. Just do it.
Smash it. There you go. Do it.
Click it. Just click it. It's nice and easy. Just click that like button.
Tell your friends, tell your family the best place to be every Saturday morning is the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. For Dave Minuk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Until next Saturday at 9 a.m., we wish you good night. Not good night and good luck. It's 11 in the morning. We say thanks for watching the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.